Hello everyone, welcome to Sprint 4. You've now had some experience with JavaScript, which is fantastic. We're going to keep going with the JavaScript. It's just pretty much JavaScript from here on out. So, this sprint we're going to be using and learning JavaScript in a slightly different context though. And the context is called REPL.it. And basically you can think about this as an environment that gives you little windows for your HTML, your CSS, and your JavaScript all at the same time. And why is this useful? Why is this useful? So in my workshop videos, you might have seen me kind of like switching around back and forth between a lot of different things, switching over to my Chrome to see my HTML, switching back over to the text editor, back over the log, all of that kind of stuff. REPL gives you the ability to do all of that in the same place, which is really useful. Now, there's a few kind of things that I want to cover here in this little introduction. One is this idea of katas. So this week, the way that all of the curriculum material is structured is that there is a series of katas. So katas in sort of like karate, Mr. Miyagi kind of Karate Kid sense is like an action that you do over and over and over again for incremental little bits of practice and improvement. So same kind of concept. We have a series of challenges, little challenge of JavaScript, little wee exercises, and you work through them methodically in the sort of wash on, wash off fashion, and then you get better at programming. That's that's the name of the game, get better at programming. We're going to also cover testing a little bit. So testing and this whole idea of TDD, which stands for test-driven development. There is this thing in programming called TDD, which is the idea that you're going to write some code, you're going to write a function that does something, and you want to be able to test it, right? Testing is a really big thing in programming. You write tests, and you can run the test, and then it tests your function, or it tests sort of like the feature or whatever it is that you're working on. And TDD is the idea that you write the test first. So that's where the test-driven development comes from. So you write a test, and then you see it fail because you haven't written the function yet, so you're testing something that is not yet working. Then you write the function, you kind of implement whatever functionality it is you're hoping to get working. Then you run the test again, and then all going well, it works. That's the concept of TDD. So we're going to explore that a little bit this week. You're going to be working from a series of tests. You're going to kind of get your head around this idea of testing, what a test looks like, and then we're going to write some tests. And hopefully in the process of doing this, both going through these little tests yourself and then writing your own, you'll sort of start to firm up this idea of what testing actually looks like in practice when you're doing software development. And then the other thing we're going to cover is code readability. So code readability is the idea that in the same way as like if you were writing an essay or whatever, you want to have good spacing between all your paragraphs. You want to have everything kind of like aligned in the right ways. Code readability is what makes it easy to, when you're debugging your code or when you're trying to work your way through a really big document, because like some of these documents can get pretty big. Code readability, correct indentations of all of your paragraphs, stuff like that. That is the thing that makes it. That is the thing that makes the difference between it being like really easy and nice to navigate your code base or a nightmare. So code readability is really important, and we're going to cover that in this sprint as well. The last thing that I want to talk about is a little bit of the core content for this week. So the whole kind of theme of this week's core content is growth versus fixed mindsets. So you might have heard about this before. There's a really amazing book on the subject called Mindset by Carol Dweck. If you do this core content and you find it engaging and you feel like this is kind of useful stuff for you to focus on, I would really recommend reading this book, Mindset by Carol Dweck. It's one of my favorites. The basic idea behind growth or fixed mindsets is when you're thinking about yourself, when you're thinking about other people, do you think of people as having the capacity to grow to challenges, for their brain to expand? Or do you think of people as having very fixed mindsets, very fixed abilities? So like, take my mathematical ability is one, right? I'm not mathematically talented whatsoever. Like, math comes really hard to me. And if I were one of the fixed mindset persuasion, I might decide that I am just not one of the kinds of people who can do math. I am just not the kind of person who can do math. And what would happen if I kind of set myself into that mindset is every time I went to go and do math, every time I went to go and try and like solve a mathematical problem or learn a new mathematical technique, I would kind of have this fixed mindset voice going on in my head being like, yeah, well, you're not a math person, so like you're not really going to be able to do that. And that kind of fixed mindset, it traps you. It traps you in feeling like you are a static person and like you're not able to grow and evolve. And the opposite of that, obviously, is the growth mindset. So that's the idea that everybody, that your brain is an elastic thing, and that it can grow to expand to like the challenges, whatever it is that you're facing. So I used to be quite of the fixed mindset. I used to think of myself that I was just not the kind of person that could do math, and that really got me. Like, I would, especially when I started programming, and I put off learning how to program for a long time, even though I knew I wanted to, because I had this germ in my fixed brain that I was not the kind of person who could do math. And the reality of the situation is that I had just not been interested in the kind of math that I was doing. I didn't find, the kind of traditional university style tertiary level mathematics. It wasn't engaging to me. And so I didn't hook into it. I didn't want to learn it. But then when I actually started doing my own programming and I needed some applied mathematics, specifically like I make video games and I needed to know about physics math, I needed to know some algebra, I needed to know about sort of trigonometry to get the angles between various objects. And I found that when I actually cared about the math that I was learning, when it was actually engaging to me, I had a lot of capacity for growth within my mind, and there was a lot of room in my brain to learn these things, and now I'm converted. Like, I really believe that anybody can learn anything if they want to and if they put their mind to it. And I think that once you engage with this core content a little bit for this week, and especially if you read this book's Mindset by Carol Dweck, you are really going to come around to this way of thinking too, that everybody has the capacity for growth within themselves, and nothing is off limits to you. No part of your brain is fixed. You can always grow and you can always learn. So, head on down to the content, and I will see you again soon. Thank you very much. Bye.